If you feel burnt out, resentful, disconnected from yourself, it's not because you're doing too much. It's because you're being someone that isn't fully you anymore. Some of you are exhausted from overfunctioning. Some of you are tired of managing everyone else's emotions. Some of you are successful on paper and hollow internally. And here's the truth. You don't need more strategy. You don't need better time management. You don't need to wake up at 5 a.m. You don't need to let go of the version of you that was built in survival. Because that version, she kept you safe. But she cannot lead you where you're going. This episode is about identity death, disappointing people, outgrowing rooms, burnout exposure, and choosing leadership over likability. And a reminder, you don't have to have a title to be a leader. And if that makes you uncomfortable, stay. I'm Sydney Jocelyn, and this is She Rises Through It. This isn't just a podcast, it's a reclamation. A space for women who are done shrinking, done rushing their healing, and ready to rise through the unfiltered middle of womanhood, motherhood, identity, and becoming. This is where I reclaim my voice in real time, and where we remember that growth doesn't happen by doing more, but by doing it differently together. Before we begin, I want to share that I'm not a medical or mental health professional. Everything shared here is based on my lived experience. Please seek qualified support if you need it. And if you're here, you're not behind, you're becoming. You're in the right place at the right time. Let's begin. Welcome back to She Rises Through It. This isn't a podcast about coping better. This is a podcast about leading differently. January was my recalibration month. February, we are full force going for it. And today, we're talking about something most women avoid because it feels selfish. Letting go of what is costing you your sense of self. Not your schedule, not your income, not your aesthetic, but yourself. And here's what makes this dangerous. You can lose yourself while everything still looks successful. You can be high functioning and self-abandoning at the exact same time. You can be admired and misaligned. That's why this is harder to confront. And let's be honest, some of you don't even know who you are right now. There are days I still don't know who I am. And maybe you're running on snoozed alarms, extra coffee or caffeine, and a lovely stiff drink at the end of a very long day, giving your energy to everyone else. You're operational, but you are not connected. And here's the thing. You know what everyone needs from you. You know what you're responsible for. You know how to keep everything functioning. You, yes, you are the glue. You are the stabilizer. And you are the one who doesn't drop the ball. But if I asked you what you want, what you think, what you feel, you'd hesitate. Not because you don't care, but because you haven't checked in with yourself in months, maybe even years. That's the cost. The cost isn't exhaustion. The cost is erosion. Slow erosion of instinct, slow erosion of desire, slow erosion of identity. And at some point, overfunctioning becomes self-abandonment. Think about that again. Overfunctioning becomes self-abandonment. Because every time you override your no, every time you soften your truth, every time you manage someone else's discomfort before honoring your own, you reinforce the belief that your role matters more than yourself. So you say yes when you mean no. You explain decisions that didn't and don't require an explanation. You regulate everyone else's emotions before honoring your own. You soften boundaries so you don't look too much. And slowly, you disappear. Not dramatically, but very, very gradually. That's why you didn't notice it at first. You thought you were tired. You thought it was a busy season and this too shall end. You thought you just needed better time management or to invest more in a certain area. And here's the part none of us talk about. Resentment is a warning sign. And resentment isn't anger. It's misaligned responsibility. If you're resentful, you're overfunctioning. And here's the uncomfortable layer. Part of you likes being the strong one. I know I do. Part of you likes being needed. I know I do. And part of you feels safe being indispensable than seen. I know I do. So we keep carrying it, even when it's costing us. And if you're exhausted right now, but your calendar isn't that crazy, you're carrying an emotional labor that probably is not yours. And burnout isn't always operational. It's often identity-based. You're tired from being the responsible one. You're probably tired from being the stable one. You're tired from being the emotionally mature one. Say that again. You are tired from being the emotionally mature one. There are days, I tell you. And you're tired from being the one who absorbs impact so others don't have to. And somewhere in that, you stopped being you. Not because you're weak, but because survival identities are efficient. They get the results you want. They just don't preserve wholeness. And this is the shift. This is the shift. She rises through it. Not by adding more, not by performing harder, but by releasing what's cost her herself. And your identity. Let's talk about your identity that built you. Let's talk about the version of you that got you exactly where you are right now. Because she deserves acknowledgement. She worked. She protected you. She built this life. But she was built under pressure. Maybe you were the overfunctioner. You handled things early because someone had to. You anticipated problems because chaos felt unsafe. You solved things before anyone asked because needing help felt weak. You equated responsibility with worth. And here's the deeper truth. If you weren't useful, you didn't feel valuable. So, you became indispensable. And now, you don't know how to carry everything. Or maybe you were the harmonizer. You kept peace at all costs because tensions felt threatening. You softened your truth so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. You absorbed emotional weight so the room didn't explode. You became emotionally fluent before you became emotionally free. You learned that your safety came from keeping everyone regulated. And now, you don't even know what your unfiltered opinion sounds like. Or maybe you were the performer. High achieving, polished, put together, super impressive. You mastered external validation. You built identity through accomplishment. You learned how to win. But internally, you were managing image, curating perception, staying 2 steps ahead so no one saw uncertainty. And now, you're so tired of being impressive. And you want to feel integrated. Or maybe you were just the reliable one. The strong one, the emotional, intelligent one, the one who doesn't fall apart. You became the stable ground for everyone else around you. But no one ever asked if you were allowed to rest. And somewhere along the way, that strength became your isolation. And listen to me carefully. The traits that made you impressive are the same traits that are exhausting you. And here's where women get stuck. You think the answer is better boundaries. I know I focused a lot on building boundaries. But no, boundaries do not fix your identity. They do not. They're a good resource and tool to have, but they don't fix your identity. And if you still believe your worth comes from being needed, you will violate your own boundaries. I've allowed my worth to be defined that way, and I've let my own boundaries be violated because I thought my worth meant that I needed to be needed in every realm of marketing. And I didn't step back and respect, what am I building? Who am I building it for? Why am I building it? And what are my end goals? To be present with my family. And if you still believe peace equals safety, oh man, you will soften your truth. If you still believe achievement equals love, you will keep performing. The answer isn't behavior change. It's identity recalibration. Why I spent January recalibrating versus pushing. Because the version of you built in survival cannot lead the version of you ready for expansion. Survival energy scans for that threat, and leadership energy decides direction. Survival asks you, how do I keep everyone stable? Leadership asks, what's aligned, while survival anticipates. Leadership initiates, while survival manages perception. Leadership accepts misinterpretation. And if you're entering a new level, maybe in business, motherhood, leadership, relationships, the identity that kept you safe might be the one suffocating you right now. And that's not betrayal. Feels like it's betrayal because survival identities are so loyal. There are moments I feel it. But it's evolution. It is evolution of change. And you don't rise after it. You rise through it. And rising through it sometimes means grieving the woman who got you here, while becoming the woman who will take you further. I want to take a minute to share something that's genuinely part of my everyday life. I don't talk about products often, and when I do, it's because they actually support me, especially my nervous system. I use Pioneer Pam's herbal tinctures daily to help me feel more grounded and regulated, especially in seasons where life feels full and a little bit loud. Hello, motherhood, toddlers. And this isn't about fixing anything. It's about supporting your body gently instead of pushing through. If this resonates, I've shared what I personally use in the show notes so you can look into it in your own time. Another piece of my personal wellness routine I want to mention is Make Wellness Bioactive Precision Peptides. I think about my health long-term, energy, focus, recovery, and how I want to support my body so I can actually show up for the life I'm building. These peptides work on a cellular level, which I appreciate because it's about sustainability, not quick fixes. If you're in a season where you're thinking more intentionally about your health and capacity, I've shared more details for you in the show notes to explore when it feels right. And I want to talk about the leadership shift, because here's the part that will make some of you uncomfortable. Leadership requires disappointing people, not strangers, but people you love. People who are used to you being available. People who benefited from the old version of you. I want you to sit with that for a second. Leadership requires letting people misunderstand you and not rushing in to correct the narrative. Let them. What we talked about last time, let them. Because leadership requires not explaining every decision, just to soften the impact. Because every time we start to over-explain ourselves, we're not clarifying. We're seeking permission. And you cannot rise into your next level while protecting everyone's comfort. And if we're honest, because I like to be honest here, part of you still wants to be liked more than you want to be powerful. And if your leadership style is built around being liked, you will stay small. You will get caught in your lies. You will get caught in a web. And if your identity is built around being needed, you will continue to stay overwhelmed. Because being needed feels safe. Being respected requires distance. If your sense of worth is tied to how well you manage other people's emotions, you will stay exhausted. Because you are making other people's reactions mean something about your value. This is the shift. You stop being the regulator of everyone else's reactions. You let adults process their own disappointment. You stop offering explanations where clarity would suffice. You say the decision once and you let it stand. You stop shrinking so the room doesn't feel intimidated. You stop cushioning your tone so no one feels confronted. You stop scanning faces to see if you're still approved. And yes, some people will call that cold. Some people will say that you've changed. Some people will say you're less accessible. What they mean, and what they truly mean, and I want you to hear this, is you're less controllable. You are less controllable. You have taken back the control into your own hands. And they also mean that you've changed. And that's the point. The point is you taking the control back and that you're changing and growing and evolving. And here's the layer most women don't anticipate. There's going to be grief in this. There's grief in this shift. You will grieve being the easy one. You will grieve being the safe one. You will grieve being the one everyone leaned on. I did. This entire shift these last 9 months, watching my entire story evolve on this podcast for you guys, I grieved. I grieved during this time. I allowed all of this time to talk about my messy middle. Allowed this time to show you the heart of what I'm still dealing with. To also provide resources and what I'm going through of what's helping me through things because I was grieving and working through it. And that's why when January 1st came around, I didn't create New Year goals. There's so much wrong with the New Year, New Me mindset. So I allowed myself to start recalibrating from who I was into who I am. Because the identity that I grieved, it got me love. It got you love. So we're allowed to grieve. It got us belonging. It got us approval. But it did not get us expansion. And she rises through it, right? She does not soften to survive it. She does not overfunction to stabilize it. She does not perform humility to remain digestible. She rises through it. And let me say something direct. You're not exhausted because you're incapable. You're not. You're exhausted because you are still operating from a version of yourself that was built to survive, not leave. Like I mentioned, survival scans for threat. Leadership sets direction. Survival asks, how do I keep everyone okay? And leadership asks, what is aligned? Survival is going to manage that perception. Leadership's tolerating misinterpretation. And that's the real burnout, not the work, the identity. I also want you to know if listening to this feels like a conversation you wish you were having in real life, that's exactly why the collective exists. It's a space for women navigating growth in real time together. without having to perform or having it all figured out first. There's no pressure to join anything. I just want you to know the space is there if and when you're ready. And if you've been feeling the need for space, real space to step away from your roles and reconnect with yourself, I create retreats for that exact reason. They're slow, intentional, and deeply grounding. If you ever want to stay in the loop about those experiences, there's a simple way to do that when the timing feels right for you. Don't forget to check out the show notes. And if there's anything you get out of this episode today, I want you to take these 5 takeaways. If you're in this season, here's what I need you to anchor. Not write it down. I just want you to anchor, because this is where identity shifts happen. Number 1, if you're resentful, you're overfunctioning. Resentment is misaligned responsibility. But let's go a little deeper. Resentment is what happens when you say yes externally and internally you're screaming no. It's the emotional invoice for self-betrayal. You don't resent people because they asked. You resent yourself because you agreed. And that's ownership. And until you stop volunteering for roles that drain you, you will keep blaming the room instead of recalibrating your identity inside. That's leadership. Number 2, you are allowed to disappoint people. Disappointment is not betrayal. It is a boundary exposure. And here's what most women don't want to admit. You are not afraid of disappointing people. You are afraid of losing access to their approval. You are afraid that if you stop over-delivering, you will stop choosing. They will stop choosing you. But leadership is not sustained by approval. It's sustained by alignment. Some people will shrink when you expand. Let them. Let them. Number 3, stop explaining yourself to people who benefit from your confusion. Clarity threatens comfort. That's not your problem. Let them. But here's the layer beneath that. When you over-explain, you are trying to manage perception. When you over-justify, you are trying to avoid rejection. When you keep talking after the decision has already been made, you are negotiating your own authority. Say it once and let it stand. Silence is not weakness. It's stability. Number 4, burnout is often emotional, not operational. It's not the workload. It's the identity load. You're not exhausted from tasks. You're exhausted from carrying identities that no longer fit. The strong one, the reliable one, the emotionally mature one, the one who doesn't need support. You're tired because you won't let yourself not be that. That's not time management. That's identity addiction. Number 5, the version of you that survived cannot lead your expansion. And this is where grief shows up. There are going to be hard days. There are going to be good days. And that grief is going to be there because she saved you. She built your life to where it is now. She earned the praise. She made you impressive. But survival identities are protective. Expansion identities are extremely exposed. And you don't need to fix her. You need to thank her. You need to honor her. And you need to release her. Because you cannot rise into your next level carrying the weight of who you used to be. This is not self-improvement. This is self-leadership. Self-improvement tweaks behavior. Self-leadership sheds identity. And shedding identity is extremely uncomfortable. And I'm still shedding. It looks a lot like disappointing people. Sometimes you're bawling your eyes out. It looks like being misunderstood constantly. And then worrying about it later. And then realizing, nope, You stood your ground, you're making your change, and it looks like being called different because you are different. And that's the point. She rises through it. This podcast is not about coping better anymore. It's about leading differently. And there's a difference. Coping teaches you how to endure what drains you. Leadership teaches you how to change what drains you. We're not building women who cope. I'm not going to cope. We're building women who lead. Women who stop overfunctioning and call it being helpful. Women who stop shrinking and call it being humble. Women who stop explaining their authority just to remain digestible. Women who understand that emotional intelligence does not mean emotional sacrifice. You don't rise after it, you rise through it. And sometimes rising means shedding, not habits, identities. Shedding the strong one role, shedding the easy one role, shedding the reliable one role, shedding the version of you that kept the peace but cost you your voice. And here's the part most women don't expect. Shedding feels like loss before it feels like power. There's going to be a lot of hard feelings of loss. It will never diminish that. But it's going to take time, and you're going to feel that shedding before it starts to feel like power and before you start feeling that recalibration. You will feel exposed before you feel expanded. It takes time. You will feel misunderstood before you feel aligned. Every day it feels like that. And that's not regression, right? It's transition. You're in transition. If this episode hit you today, it's because you're in a leadership transition. And transition require containers. You cannot recalibrate identity alone while staying in the same environment that rewarded your survival patterns. That's why space matters. That's why proximity matters. That's why immersion matters. If you're ready to integrate this work, not just feel inspired for 24 hours, the collective is where we recalibrate identity in real time, in your boundaries, in your leadership, in your voice, in your decisions. And if you are ready to embody this shift fully in your nervous system, your posture, your authority, Costa Rica is not a vacation. It is an identity recalibration. It is a room where you stop performing strength. It is a space where you shed the version of you that no longer fits. And I want to say this clearly. There are 3 spots left. 3. And once they're filled, the container closes. No overflow, no squeezing in, no last-minute expansion. Because this isn't about volume. It's about depth. It's about wanting to feel more, but not knowing if you're ready. And if you've been circling it, if you've been waiting to feel more ready, overthinking is survival. Deciding is leadership. Don't join because you're inspired. Inspiration will fade. Join because you're done shrinking. Join because you're done performing. Join because you're done carrying what isn't yours. Join because you are ready to rise and reground into your becoming. This is the shift. This is the movement. She rises through it, not by coping better, not by carrying more, but by leading differently. And so do you. Until next time, loves. If this episode resonated with you, subscribing, sharing it, or leaving a review is one of the easiest ways to support the podcast and help it reach other women who might need it too. I really appreciate you being here, and remember, you don't rise through it alone. We rise through it together.